Welcome everyone to another episode of Cellular Wisdom, where we explore big questions about health, often with a microscope in one hand and a joke in the other. I'm Ethan Foster, the man who once tried balancing on one leg, but ended up balancing the hospital bill instead.
And I'm Alara Sky, here to keep Ethan on his toes, preferably both at the same time. Today we're talking about balance, why it matters, and how it shapes your health in ways you never imagined.
Yes, indeed, balance. It's not just the thing that wobbles when I try to put on my socks standing up. Turns out it's also a good predictor of how long we'll all be around, and how well we'll function while we're here.
Nothing says graceful aging like not tipping over in the produce aisle. In fact, Dr. Joseph Mercola's insights suggest that your ability to remain upright is kind of a barometer for overall health.
Exactly. Let's start with the basics. Balance function, as Dr. Mercola notes, is a key predictor of healthy aging and longevity. Apparently, if you can stay upright, you may just stay around longer. People with poor balance scores face higher rates of hospitalization, and they develop chronic diseases more often.
It makes sense when you think about it. Good balance means your body is communicating well with itself. If your muscles, joints, and brain can coordinate, that suggests everything else might be running smoothly too.
Speaking of running, I wonder if the real reason I don't run marathons is because my balance would sabotage me around mile 1.
Yes, we'll stick to a brisk walk for now, but that walk is itself useful. In studies, walking speed is also tied to good outcomes. If you walk faster, you might live longer. I'm not suggesting you sprint through the mall, although that might save time during holiday sales, but a comfortable, brisk pace can signal better balance and better overall function.
We also have the matter of brain structure. Dr. Mercola cites fascinating research showing that balance training leads to improved gray matter volume, plus new neural connections. So, the next time you see someone wobbling on one leg in yoga class, that person might be forging new brain pathways.
In fairness, that's reason enough to try it. If I can improve my brain while attempting a tree pose, sign me up. Balance training isn't just about preventing a catastrophic fall, it's literally shaping your brain.
I always assumed I'd have to solve complex puzzles to build brain power. Now it turns out all I have to do is stand on one foot and not keel over.
Well, you could do both. Solve a Rubik's Cube while balancing on one leg. If you can do that, you might unlock all sorts of hidden superpowers, or at least impress the neighbors.
Let's talk about some real tests. There's that 10-second one-leg balance test they mention. Dr. Mercola points out it predicts mortality risk in adults over 50 with surprising accuracy. Stand on one leg for 10 seconds, no support. If you can do it, that's a good sign. If not, it might be time to work on strengthening stability.
And to clarify, that's one leg for 10 seconds, not 10 legs for 1 second. That would be a spider or an octopus, which is a different show altogether.
I'm afraid I'd fail both tests, but let's assume it's one leg, 10 seconds. The correlation is so reliable, it outperforms other more complex medical assessments in predicting longevity risk. There's also another test, timed up and go, or the TUG test. Essentially, you stand from a chair, walk 10 feet, come back, and sit down. If it takes you more than 15 seconds, that's a red flag.
The TUG test is simple, and it's not just for senior athletes. Even if you're 50, you can see how quickly you can do it. People who take well over 15 seconds may want to explore ways to boost their balance and functional mobility.
You mentioned yoga earlier. That's one approach. But let's break down some of the data. Dr. Mercola references a study from the University of Aveiro in Portugal. They tested older adults using a variety of balance assessments and found that better balance lined up with higher physical activity, superior walking speed, and better quality of life.
They used tests with fun names like Best Test, Mini Best Test, and the Brief Best Test. It's like the trifecta of personal interrogations. But apparently the easiest one to administer was the Mini Best Test, which could be done in about 10 to 15 minutes. And it was spot on at identifying who was at risk of falls.
Falling is no joke, especially as we get older. Once you take a tumble, the risk of hospitalization increases, the fear of falling rises, and you might reduce your activity, creating a vicious cycle. Dr. Mercola highlights that inactivity is a strong predictor of poor balance.
Absolutely. In that same study, 73.7% of participants were classified as insufficiently active. And guess who had the worst balance? The people who rarely moved around. It's basically use it or lose it for your muscles and your equilibrium.
They also mentioned that in the group of people who had multiple falls, 100% of them were considered insufficiently active. Makes me want to add a little dance break to my day, though I might skip the tango until I'm sure I won't trip over my own feet.
Hey, if you want to combine movement and balance in one fell swoop, dancing is actually great. It forces you to adjust posture quickly, coordinate with a rhythm, and remain aware of your partner's steps. Plus, it's more fun than walking in a straight line. But the principle is the same. You keep your body engaged so it doesn't forget how to stabilize.
Speaking of synergy, there's a study from the University of Madeira that tracked hundreds of older adults. It found that muscle strength and balance were two major paths through which physical activity improved quality of life. Balance alone accounted for nearly half the positive effect.
The moral of the story is, If you're physically active, your legs are stronger. Stronger legs mean better postural control, which leads to fewer falls, better walking speed, and a higher quality of life. And that's 98% of the relationship between activity and well-being, at least according to that study.
Which begs the question, what about the brain in all this? Dr. Mercola points to a University of Freiburg study using near-infrared spectroscopy. Younger adults used areas of the brain that handle body awareness and movement when balancing, basically on autopilot. Older adults engaged more of the prefrontal cortex, as if they needed more conscious control to keep from toppling.
Yes, the older you get, the more your balance relies on the thinking part of the brain rather than the automatic pilot. But the upside is that 12 weeks of balance training changed brain structure in older adults, more gray matter volume and better communication between brain regions. So the brain can adapt with practice.
That's a relief. My autopilot may be a little rusty, but apparently I can still tune it up with the right routine.
Exactly. It's never too late or too early to work on your balance. Now let's talk about some simple ways to do that. According to Dr. Mercola, you can start with a few easy exercises at home, like standing on one foot near a wall or the heel-to-toe walk where you step forward on a tightrope line.
I tried that in my hallway. Full disclosure, I ended up hugging the wall, so maybe I'll move more slowly next time.
It's wise to keep a safety net at the beginning. Another exercise is the supported squat, holding onto a chair for stability. Just do a few squats, focusing on form. Engages the legs, helps with balance.
And then there's sitting or kneeling on a stability ball. I have a stability ball at home, but it mostly functions as a cat bed. Maybe I should reclaim it.
Your cat might file a formal complaint, but yes, use it. If you can sit on the ball for 30 seconds without rolling off, you start training your core stabilizers. Another suggestion is Tai Chi or gentle yoga. Both combine mindful movement and posture adjustments.
I've seen people do Tai Chi in the park, moving slowly and gracefully. Meanwhile, I'm on the sidelines, rummaging for snacks. But hey, it might be a good time to join in, get that brain-body connection working.
There's also ankle strengthening exercises. Writing the alphabet with your foot while seated is surprisingly helpful. Or just standing on your tiptoes to strengthen calves and ankles. If you're feeling daring, you can shift your weight around as you balance.
Dynamic balance challenges are another tip, walking sideways, backwards, or in a figure-8 pattern. Maybe don't do that in a busy crosswalk, though. We want to reduce risks, not create them.
Exactly. And if you do these little moves throughout the day, they add up. Stand on one leg while you're waiting for your coffee to brew. Practice getting up from a chair without using your arms. Do ankle circles while you watch TV.
So many possibilities. I like that I don't need to sign up for an extreme sports class. Just incorporate small changes here and there.
Dr. Mercola also points out that while 50 is a good age to start paying extra attention to balance, there's no reason you can't begin sooner. By 50, muscle mass and fast twitch fibers have started to decline. But in your 30s or 40s, you can begin building a cushion against that drop-off.
I love the notion that if you practice balancing earlier, you can maintain more muscle, more control, and ultimately enjoy a higher quality of life down the road. It's like saving for retirement, but instead of money, you're saving up stability.
Well put. If you invest in your balance now, you withdraw fewer hospital visits later. Sounds like a wise trade. And beyond that, it's surprisingly empowering to realize that just because we age, it doesn't mean we're doomed to constant wobbling. We can train ourselves to be agile well into our later years.
For sure. Let's circle back to the mortality prediction angle. It might sound a bit dire, but it's actually uplifting if you think about it. The 10-second one-leg test isn't just to spook us. It's giving us a gauge. If you can't hold it for 10 seconds, okay, maybe it's time to add some balance drills to your routine and see if you improve.
And you probably will improve. Neurologically, we see that new connections form in the brain with training. Muscles also respond to regular work. It's a win-win. You get more confident, less worried about falling, and ironically, that might keep you more active, which feeds the cycle of better health.
Right. And speaking of cycles, once you trust your balance, you might want to do other physical activities, a pleasant hike, a dance class, or just playing tag with the grandkids. All of that fosters a vibrant life. It's not just about standing on one foot in your living room forever. It's about giving yourself the freedom to move.
Freedom to move. That's what it comes down to. We can do so much to protect our balance, strengthen it, and preserve our independence. Because if you can walk steadily, you can engage with the world on your own terms.
Absolutely, and it's reassuring to know that the research shows improvement is possible at nearly any age. The older adult brain might need to work harder in the prefrontal cortex, but it can still rewire itself through consistent training.
So maybe we should issue a friendly challenge to our listeners. Try that 10-second one-leg stand. If you can't hit 10 seconds, don't fret. Just set a goal. Check again in a few weeks after practicing. Watch how your body adapts.
We'll call it the Cellular Wisdom Challenge. Although, if you need a catchier name, you can call it the One Leg Wonder Challenge, or perhaps the Don't Fall For It Challenge. No, that might be too punny.
Nothing is too punny for you, Ethan. But yes, I like the idea. Let's see how many of our listeners discover hidden talents. And if balancing on one leg doesn't appeal, you can always practice the tug test. Time your stand and walk routine.
Doctor, Mercola's advice might feel plain, but it's refreshingly practical. We all stand and walk every day, so why not do it with a dash of awareness? Each step becomes a little training session in disguise.
Spoken like a true convert. Now, if only we could get you to test that stability ball. Maybe you and your cat can work out a co-ownership agreement.
I'll see what I can negotiate. She's a formidable opponent in any property dispute, but the bigger point is that a stability ball can be used for more than feline naps. It's part of the solution for core engagement.
Exactly. All these daily habits, heel-to-toe walking, single-leg stands, chair squats, stability ball balancing, contribute to a healthier, longer, and more confident life. There's nothing fancy required, just patience and consistency.
That's a refreshing message. We can all do that. And it's good to have a gentle reminder that falling isn't inevitable. Instead, we can shape our aging process by honing our balance.
So, to wrap it up, balance is more than a party trick. It's an indicator of how well our body and mind communicate. Better balance correlates with a reduced risk of chronic disease, improved longevity, stronger muscles, more resilient brain function, and a far better quality of life.
That's a strong conclusion. We've learned a lot from Dr. Mercola's perspective on how something so fundamental can tell us so much about our health.
And for those who worry they're too clumsy, you're not doomed. The science suggests that with some fun, simple exercises, you can rebuild that sense of equilibrium at any age. Who knows? You might even master more advanced poses before you know it.
I'll be sure to practice away from any fragile vases. Safety first. And with that, we'll call it a day on this episode of Cellular Wisdom. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the wonders of balance.
Stay upright, everyone, and remember, every time you catch yourself from a slip, you're basically giving your brain a little victory lap. Until next time, this is Alara Sky, signing off with both feet on the ground.
And I'm Ethan Foster, promising to keep at least one foot on the ground from now on. Thanks for listening to Dr. Mercola's Cellular Wisdom. We'll see you next time.
Stay balanced out there.